Good morning. It is Sunday, February 21st. It's the first Sunday in Lent. This week, I had opportunity to get my second vaccination shot. The state of Indiana has included clergy, especially clergy that see people in medical situations, to get vaccinated. And so on Friday, I had my second shot, and I'm so thankful to do that. I want to encourage you, as soon as you are able, as soon as your group is called or your number is called, please use one of the many facilities in Delaware County to get your vaccination shot. The second shot tends to give people maybe a day or two of more symptoms of flu-like or just not feeling well symptoms. And I'm experiencing that. I'm not feeling all that great. And all that means, though, is that my body is producing its army of fighting cells and ramping up production of antibodies that are preparing to fight, quarantine, and defeat the coronavirus should I come in contact with it. So if you are having symptoms, some people do, some people don't after the second shot, it only means that your body is doing what it's supposed to do, and it's preparing you to be healthy should you come in contact with the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. Make sense? So I'm so thankful to not be feeling well today, because it means that I got my second shot, this booster, and it's boosting me up, and I just need a couple days to produce all of that army of fighting cells that'll protect me. I'm so thankful that those over 65 have gotten that, and our police officers, firefighters, nurses, and doctors have gotten that. I cannot figure out why in Indiana we are not including teachers in that class of vaccinations. And so I just want to say, teachers, I support you. I'm with you. We can call our representatives from any party and ask them, could you please speak on our behalf to get teachers included in the vaccination rollout? All right, so if you will be just slightly patient with me, I'm not feeling well, but I'm going to do my best to kick us off in the season of Lent. We had Ash Wednesday service on the sidewalk last Wednesday, and Mark Orweiler pulled up, and he was talking with his daughter, and his daughter had mentioned, wasn't 2020 Lent? Didn't we already go through Lent of giving so many things up, or practicing so many reflective or penitive or repentant like things through Lent, through 2020? And I was like, yes, that's exactly right. And we marked ourselves. Normally we mark ourselves just with the words of repent and believe the gospel, or from ashes you came, to ashes you will return. But this season, we marked ourselves on the forehead or the hand with ashes and said, fight despair, by knowing that at the end of the ashes and death season is resurrection. And Jesus is the first of the rest of us to get new bodies. And we are all waiting together for a new heaven and a new earth. And so something unusual we're going to do, I don't find it unusual, but you might, is we're going to take the next 7 weeks until Easter, and we're going to do close studies or close readings or very impactful passages, important passages in the book of Revelation to walk us through this season of Lent and Palm Sunday and Holy Week and Easter morning. The book of Revelation, some people, it's okay to view it as a fifth gospel, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and John's second gospel, which is a wild dream, as a fifth gospel. And while my experience has been that whether you grew up in church or maybe you grew up on the streets, you have a little church influence, you have a lot of church influence, whatever. I talk with a lot of people who are scared of the book of Revelation, or they're scared of what they've been told. They're scared of 666 or the mark of the beast. And so while we are in these preaching texts from the book of Revelation over the next 7 weeks, I want you to know that our primary theme will be fighting despair, but we're also going to clear up some miscommunications. I am someone who trains. My desire is to train disciples. That's where I work best, and I do that through training in spiritual formation, or interior formation, or the inner theological formation that then impacts the way we live. And I got to tell you that the way we think about the end times, the way we think about the last days, whatever those definitions may be, we won't get to that yet. The way we think about that, our theological perspectives on the end times or the last days, influence how we live now. And I'm even going to go so far as to say influence how we feel now. The book of Revelation is meant as a hope and as a comfort. It's a way to take a look at the world that we live in, understand what's really going on, to have the curtain pulled back, to see who's really behind to see the machinations that are really behind the curtain, and to fight despair through that. Because now we see what has gone on, what is going on, and what will continue on in the future. But yet we know the last word. And so the book of Revelation is actually an invitation for you to be free. I don't mean that not being able to afford your prescription medication is not horrible or terrible. I don't mean that addiction that has touched every one of our families and damaged so much. I don't mean that that's not horrible or terrible. What I mean is that we know the end of the story, and that the end of the story is resurrection. And that gives us the power to get through addiction. That gives us the power to get through divorce. That gives us the power to get through hopelessness. We have a hope while we're squarely, not sugarcoating, squarely looking into the face of the craziness of the world, or the craziness even of our own insides. Looking squarely at those things, not denying it. We're not pretenders, as we spoke last week. We don't pretend. Christians aren't pretenders. We're not supposed to be. And so while looking at the world, we can fight despair and fight for hope in our lives and the lives of around us. And the book of Revelation is an invitation for you to be free of despair, because you really now know what's going on. Okay? All right. So this morning we're just going to look at two passages in chapter 1. I would ask, though, for next week if you would read chapters 1 through 6. You don't have to, but it might prepare you a little bit. And I'm not saying that it's going to be easy reading. The book of Revelation is written in a difficult manner on purpose. Not just the images and the visuals and the dreams and the visions and things, but actually technically the words and the sentences and all that kind of stuff is written in a difficult manner by the author. John writes it strangely, And so you ask, well, why? Why do we write in a vision? Why do we communicate in a dream? Why is there this, quote, fifth gospel of Jesus Christ, which, right, has the red letters in it that he speaks himself? Why is that difficult? Why is it in dream language? Well, we'll get to that at some point. But when things are difficult to read or comprehend, they invite us, using our imaginations, to really pay attention, to see the thing beyond the thing, to see the bigger picture, to slow down, to understand what's going on, so that we will have accomplished something. We will have accomplished some victories if we can squeeze any little bit of hope and anti-despair out of these pages. So that's my prayer as we enter into Lent, that whether you're afraid of the book, whether you've been misinformed, whether someone used it in your life to cause fear of God in your life, any of those things, that's all going to come up as we go through this in your heart. But my prayer is that you would see that it is meant for your comfort. The book of Revelation, as crazy as it is meant for your comfort. Okay, so the first two sections, little tiny passages that we're going to read, are in chapter 1. Would you turn there? I don't care what version you read. I'm going to read the NASB, but you feel free, whatever you like, whatever you use, or whatever's been your practice, you feel free to use that. So we're going to start in 1:17. 1:17. John sees an image of Jesus who's burning bright, even brighter than the sun. And in verse 17, he says, "And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as a dead man. And he laid his right hand upon me, saying, 'Do not be afraid.'" We'll stop right there. Do not be afraid. When we have a vision of the nations of the earth raging, and the natural resources or the natural environment of the earth failing, and when we have visions of our families disintegrating, when we see these things in our lives, and if we look at them from a historical perspective, and we see these epic shifts, like a nuclear bomb can kill hundreds of thousands of people in a second, right? When we see that, and then when we see Jesus in his full radiance, in his full kinghood, in his full creator, as full creator, the weight of all of those things can make you feel like a dead person, a dead man or a dead woman. You fall down dead. Raise your hand if you have ever had to lay down at receiving bad news, or realizing something epic and you've had to sit down, or your stomach has been upset, right? This is the type of thing. John gets a picture of all of this and the magnitude of it, and what exactly can we do with our own two hands, right? These things are epic. These things are cosmic. And he sees Jesus in the middle of this brilliant light show that the cosmos or the universe is putting on. And he sees him right in the middle, and he falls down like he's a dead man. But notice, he laid his right hand upon me, saying, "Do not be afraid." And he says, "I am the first and the last," meaning I've got it. I've got it. And so Jesus physically reaches out and touches him on the shoulder. He touches him on the shoulder and says, "I'm the first and the last," meaning there isn't anything. Not that I know the first from the last, not that I know the beginning and the end, not that I understand I have a concept of what's going on, not that, well, no, like like my existence is greater than all of these things, all of the natural disasters of the world, all of the wars, all of the abuse, everything we have experienced. I've got it. And you don't need to be afraid. That doesn't mean we don't feel pain and suffering. It means that we don't have to feel pain and suffering with fear. Because Jesus is saying, I am the first and I am the last. And he's either crazy or he's right. Right? That you don't go around saying that unless it's true. Or, and I shouldn't use the word crazy. It has people use that to put others down. This is the kind of thing you say, and you're either right or you're wrong. And he says, I'm the first and the last. Do not be afraid. And the living one, and I was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore, and I have the keys of death and Hades. So even in your sure death, your unavoidable death, even in the unavoidable ends and tragedies of life, Jesus says, that's not the last word, because I'm alive forevermore. I was dead too, and I have the keys of death and of Hades, or of hell. I have the keys of death and hell. Write therefore the things which you have seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall take place after these things. This verse 119 is an interpretive clue to understanding the book of Revelation, or the apocalypse. The curtain, in 119, the curtain is being pulled back. And that is that the experience of the book of Revelation is the experience of living in the last days, in living in the end times. The last days, or the end times, as defined by the New Testament, is everything after Jesus. So the last days, the end times, are the last 2,000 years. Don't let anyone else tell you differently. It will only cause fear in your life, and they're usually just trying to make money by selling a book or getting you to donate or watch their program. The last days, the end times, are everything after Jesus. And this is the experience, just like God was and is to come, this experience of apocalypse, this experience of revealing, this experience of tragedy, or being caught in between a rock and a hard place, or up against the wall. This experience of life being difficult, the nations raging, truth being on trial, liars promoting lies, and calling truth lies, right? This experience of the apocalypse, the revealing of the hearts, the revealing of the nations, the revealing of the motives. This experience has been going on, and it is going on, and it will continue to go on. There is this part of the continuing, or the future, that these tragedies and these epic cosmic things will happen, or these very individual, family-based tragedies happen. Those things will continue to go on in our future. There is a crescendo at the end. Things get more intense, or a crescendo at the end. But Jesus says, don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to when or how or why. There's always rumors. There's always wars and rumors of wars. Don't worry about that. You focus on not being afraid. You focus on letting me bear time and history on my shoulders, Jesus would say. You let me bear those things, and in that you will fight despair. And recognizing that death is not the end, you will fight despair. That all things can be made new you will fight despair, that your ashes and your dust and your repentance and your death, in a sense, going under the water in baptism, and your new life, like all of those things are leading up to real new bodies, real new heaven, real new earth, real new cosmos. And so you can take comfort because of things like do not be afraid, or you can take comfort and fight despair because, in one sense, it's always been the end of the world, right? It's always been the end of the world. And so these things have happened to Christians and people and the environment before. These things are happening now, and these things will happen in the future. And that sounds an awful lot like out of your control. It's out of your control. It's out of your purview. It's above your pay grade. It's not in your own hands. Now, there is something in your hands, but this isn't it. Managing the end times, managing a tidal wave that hits the whole side of a continent and kills hundreds of thousands of people. That isn't, that's not within your purview. That's not within your own hands. Now, bringing aid, shoring up what was lost. That's what we can do to the end. Those are things that we can do to the end. And in verse 20, Jesus says, talking about what John has seen, as for the mystery of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands, he says the 7 stars are the angels or the messengers of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. We are going into John's dream world, and he's going to use for him contemporary items for symbols, and he's also going to draw on the Hebrew Bible for many symbols and many images in relaying this dream. And this dream is going to work better for our understanding than if it was said in plain language. Because what plain language, in whose language, in what time, can communicate these epic, cosmic, almost fantastical things? What could communicate that? No, it would get stuck and we wouldn't be able to understand it. However, if we use a dream, something that requires the imagination, something that requires creativity, something that's a journey that you have to go along with, well, my goodness, I can translate that in any language, and that will communicate what has happened, what is happening, and what will happen, so that you can see it for yourself as you experience it. And take comfort from the Lord, who uses his own hand on your shoulder and says, do not be afraid about what I'm about to pull the curtain on. Do not be afraid of the truth that you see when the curtain's pulled back. Okay, stick with me. We're almost done for this morning. Would you turn back, though? Go to verse 5 and 6. Verse 5 and 6. Right? We're close reading. We're doing close readings of these scriptures. 5. And from Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, the firstborn of the dead, and the ruler of the kings of the earth. The book begins by stating that Jesus is the ruler of the kings of the earth. To him who loves us and released or freed us from our sins by his blood, and he has made us a kingdom, priests to his God and Father. To him be the glory and the dominion forever and ever. Amen. So verse 5, Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, the one who told the truth, and the one whose telling and living of the truth caused his death, and he was a faithful witness unto death. And his faithful witness is that he's not dead now. He is the faithful witness, the firstborn of the dead, the first of the rest of us, and the ruler of the kings of the earth. And he loves us, and he has freed us. And you need to follow this line of thinking right here. Faithful witness, not dead, ruler of all the kings of the earth, the titans, the giants, the men and women who walk the earth and wield power. He's the ruler of them. He loves us, and he released us, or he helped us to walk out in the Exodus. He freed us from the heavy burdens and the chains of sin by his blood. Not our blood, not the blood of our oppressor, but his own blood. And then, because of that liberation, he's made us into a kingdom priests. This type of thing that we're about to go on a journey in the book of Revelation is that Jesus is in opposition to the kingdoms of the world, and he has invited us to be on a mission of becoming a counter kingdom. The kingdoms of the earth, and we are a part of the opposition. We are a part of the counter kingdom, the counter kingdom that is based in love, the counter kingdom that values people from birth to death, the counter kingdom that leads people in liberation from all the other so-called kings and rulers and authorities of the earth. And the counter kingdom of people who, and we will see as we go on, people who fight the alternate reality that the dragon, that the beasts, and that the pharaohs of the earth would invite us into. Jesus, whose kingdom is not open yet, his lordship, his rule, which is not an open rule yet. We are invited to live as if it is. And so what do we do in the midst of a despairing world? We fight as priests, in a sense. We fight the lies and the narratives of all the other would-be kings, pharaohs, beasts, dragons that would seek to destroy life, that would seek power in order for money, that would seek to destroy the world that God has created. And the invitation is, because he loves us, because death is not the end, would you spend your life understanding what's really behind the curtain so that you can also help people to freedom and help people to be liberated from the lies and the narratives that the would-be titans and the would-be giants invite us into? That is allegiance to Christ. That is giving your heart to him. That is becoming a disciple of Jesus. Wrestle with these things. I cannot wait to get back here next Sunday as we move on in our season of Lent, heading towards Holy Week and heading towards Resurrection Sunday. But would you lace up your boots? Not be afraid of death, not be afraid of tragedy, not be afraid of whatever might befall. Put your boots on and start walking and living as a priest who helps others to pull the curtain back on the false lies, the false narratives that the authorities and the powers of the world, which always act how they've acted, are acting how they act now, and who will continue to be who they are in the future. Would you throw your lot in helping people walk out of oppression into the love and hope and power to fight despair of Jesus Christ, the first raised man for the rest of us men and women? Love you very much. Send me comments, questions through email, phone call, text, whatever. And God bless you as you go on this Lenten journey in this season. All right, peace.